Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Esther
with Dan Irvin.
Well, welcome back to the 5 Good Minutes podcast today as we are going through the book of Esther, chapter 7 this week. And today I want to look at something that I think could be easily missed here, and that is that the story of Esther in this chapter takes a dramatic turn, perhaps an unexpected turn, in the sudden death of the evil villain, Haman. Perhaps Esther foresaw this as the desired outcome, but nonetheless, God, in this case, chose to put to death a man, one of God's created children, Haman, to move forward with Esther's plan to rescue her people. And now, from what we can gather about Haman, we can see that he was greedy, evil, racist, criminal, and that's best case scenario. So I'm not here pleading for sympathy for Haman, but his death and God's favor towards Esther and the Jews reminds me of just how much God detests evil and the lengths he'll go to thwart evil's plans. And while this account in chapter 7 might seem unusually brutal or graphic or perhaps not suitable for kids, it's a reminder. It's a reminder of God's plan and that his providence sometimes is unexpected and perhaps even a little uncomfortable. I don't know if you can think about a time in your life where something has happened. It's a tragedy, a loss, a death of a loved one, and you've thought, what in the world is God doing in this? You know, you hear verses like Romans 8:28. Perhaps you've heard Romans 8:28 read before. If not, I'll read it in just a moment. It says this, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." You know, who have been called according to his purpose. If we read that verse carefully, it's not saying that everything will always be pleasant, there'll be no pain, there'll be no undesirable outcomes or circumstances. But what Paul is saying, and his point in writing this, is that if we put our hope and our trust in Jesus, in his finished, in his saving work, that even in our difficult circumstances, those don't have to define us. God shows up because we can remember, we can know what God has done, the ultimate promise that we have in Jesus, the sacrifice that he made on the cross. So we know that God detests evil, and Esther being delivered from Haman is not the only place in the Bible where we see this, God taking a stand against evil and delivering his people. It's a theme in the Old Testament. God is foreshadowing, pointing to the day, the ultimate day, where one day he will defeat evil once and for all, defeat sin by sending his son Jesus as an atoning sacrifice, as payment for our sin. So the question today to consider, how can we, if you consider yourself a follower of Christ, how can we maintain faith in Jesus when life circumstances are hard? One thing I consider often, that I go back to all the time, is Jesus' words in John chapter 15. Jesus says this in verse 5, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. But if you remain in me and my words remain in you, and you can ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you will bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples." It's this understanding that connected to Jesus, connected to what he has done for us, to God's will, that we can ask for whatever we want because we're connected to Jesus in a way that our hearts align with God's heart. The more that we get to know him, it's a daily reminder, a habitual going back to the truth, what we know to be true, what you know to be true about God. My kids are at the age where they don't always love brushing their teeth before bed. And they might miss a day. They probably won't notice anything. But they might miss 2, 3. If they miss a 4th day, they're going to start to notice their teeth don't feel right. They're covered in food and their breath might start to smell a little bit. There's a compound effect to missing something, to missing a habitual routine that is necessary for our physical health. And in the same way, our spiritual health. When we go to Jesus on a daily basis, when we go to the scriptures, when we go to him in prayer, and we connect with him and remain connected to him, then and only then can our lives look different. Can we change in such a way? Can we be spiritually healthy in such a way that produces change in our lives and change around us?
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.